In August last year, the singer Zelim Bekev disappeared in Chechnya.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to The Struggle. The Struggle is on over 30 cable stations from Maine to New York City, on the internet at thestruggle.org. We've been broadcasting weekly since 2003. This is program 750. The Israelis who are shooting thousands of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip are not the only one guilty of crimes. So are the officers of the companies that sell guns to Israel. Gun fan websites claim that Israelis are using Rugers. So a dozen of us from Middle East Crisis Committee, Jewish Voice for Peace New Haven, and the Tree of Life Education Fund took a walk of protest to Sturm Ruger headquarters in Southport, Connecticut.
Yeah.
We're here in front of Sturm Ruger and Company in Fairfield after 2 months of mayhem in the Gaza Strip. Thousands of people shot with live ammunition. It's not clear whose rifles are doing what, but a lot of the gun websites say Rugers are being used for, quote, crowd control. And that's very disturbing. And as people who live in Connecticut, we're very unhappy with this. So we actually walked here half a mile with our signs and banners, and we came up here on the company's property, and a spokesperson came out, a vice president, and talked with us. It was a little unclear what he was saying. He was very clear they're not going to issue any formal statement, which is disturbing. He was saying the 10-22 is not a sniper rifle, and they don't have control of who they sell them to. They comply with all federal and international laws, etc., etc. But we think this matter should be investigated, and that no U.S. or anybody's sniper rifles should be sold to the Israeli government with their record as a serial human rights violator.
One of the things that we said to the gentleman with whom we were speaking, in response to him saying, well, we don't have any control over where our guns go. We sell them to distributors, and then the distributors can sell them to whoever they want, to militaries around the world. We have no control over that. And when I said to him that I, as a Jew, have no control over what the Jewish state of Israel does, but nevertheless, since they are representing themselves as a Jewish state, that I, as a Jew, have a moral obligation to say, no, this is horrific what you are doing, and it might be that I, in the end, have no ultimate control over it. Nevertheless, it's incumbent upon me to speak out and speak the truth, and so that's what I told him.
Good.
I think the argument that they are not responsible for what their distributors do with weapons is like saying, I'm not responsible if I give a gun to a child and the child shoots himself. That child is what I give the gun to, and so the child is responsible for doing that. This is ridiculous. You don't give guns to distributors that are known to distribute to human rights violations. That is a violation of international law, and it's a violation of even U.S. law. And congressional law says you cannot give support to countries that persistently violate human rights, and the U.S. does that. As such, the U.S. and this company are both complicit in these crimes against humanity and crimes against Palestinian children.
Israeli media are reporting on a bestial act of taunting. We'll start with a bit of video.
علي علي بالجنة علي علي بالجنة يا بالجنة يا.
Unless you know Arabic, that just seems like people milling about. What was going on was people in front of a court where a judge was ruling on confessions made under torture. The background is they were confessions involved with 3 murders. The murdered people were Palestinian, the Dawabsha family, a father, a mother, and an infant named Ali. They were burned to death in a crime of hate and terrorism. Additionally, a 5-year-old was terribly burned but survived. This happened in 2015, almost 3 years ago. Israeli police took months to investigate. They finally arrested 2 people, Amiram ben Uliel and a minor, and connected the 2 to a terrorist group. Then the police tortured both of them and got confessions. There have been court proceedings ever since trying to decide whether these confessions can be used at a trial. At the most recent session, some supporters of the killings mocked and taunted Hussein Dawabsha, the grandfather of the murdered infant. They yelled at him, "Where's Ali?" "There's no Ali. Ali is burned on the fire. Ali on the grill." Here's that video again.
علي علي بالجنة علي علي بالجنة يا بالجنة يا. علي علي
Israeli police did nothing, even when they were asked to act by a member of the Israeli parliament. How do you describe the depravity of people who make these comments and the police who allow it? Will the ADL or members of the Jewish establishment say something? Don't hold your breath. The judge did make a ruling throwing out several of the confessions, but allowing in one made by Ben Uliel. We are in awe of Hussein Dawabsha, who is somehow withstanding 3 years of hell, patiently going to the Israeli court, being verbally abused time after time, with little hope of any kind of justice. One civilized response is to boycott Israeli products and performances in Israel, BDS. These are the BDS victories in just the last month. Last weekend, the Tree of Life Foundation held a homecoming event, inviting as speakers people who went on their many trips to Palestine and Israel. We'll have part of it today and more on future programs. Today, Bayan Mansour and Suzanne Everwood.
Bayan Mansour was first introduced to me a couple of years ago, and she's was an incredibly active member of Students for Justice in Palestine when she attended UConn. And so Bayan was instrumental in bringing programs to UConn and very courageous. Just in case she doesn't share it, I want to tell you that every year when we prepare for our journey, Bayan says, "I'm going with you this year." And every year I say, "Well, I hope so, but how does your father feel?" And the reason that Bayan can't go to Palestine is because she's Palestinian. So I'll let you speak to that if you promise to. Okay, good. Come on, Bayan. Please help me welcome Bayan Mansour.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you all. As she said, my name is Bayan. I am first a human being, so as all of you in the room are, that God created with basic human rights. I'm not here to talk about the situation in Palestine. I'm sure all of you are aware of the terrorism that Israel has perpetuated against humanity at large. I'm here to talk about how this cause affects us all. When you look at the police officers that are trained by Israel, that discriminate against our black brothers and sisters in America, or you look at the treatment of the Native Americans that are treated with injustice in this country as well, the act of injustice is consistent within all of those groups. Many people twist the teachings of God to claim they are fulfilling His wishes, when they are in fact fulfilling their own selfish desires. In doing so, they cause bloodshed and chaos on the blessings that God gave for all of us to share and enjoy. The foundations of God's teachings are based on logic, compassion, justice, and peace, especially. Nothing that is taking place in Gaza's chaos or in the West Bank with the illegal land settlements is based on any of those principles, but rather the disregard for it. As a Palestinian, I have my rights to visit the West Bank and travel freely within it, removed from me and my family. I am here today to also encourage all of those that can embark on this Tree of Life trip, if given this right, to not take it for granted, to not take it lightly, take it as an opportunity to enjoy the Tree of Life on the trip that they have coming up next. You are immensely blessed with this gift. Not all of us at this moment have, me included. So please feel free to approach Mary, Sister Hofran, David Good, who's standing in the back, that I've been blessed to know. And that's pretty much what I came here to talk to you guys about today. And that's it. Thank you.
Shukran, sister. So last year, I had the pleasure of traveling with Suzanne Everwood. Suzanne is attending Yale University and is also a member of Students for Justice in Palestine there. A wonderful person. You'll come to know her momentarily. And she took a lot of really amazing photographs on our journey. So about the first week in March, Susan called and she said that she was making another trip to Palestine and David and I have any recommendations for people that she could meet with. So we asked, as probably like most concerned sort of parents do, so who are you traveling with and how long will you be gone? And what is your itinerary? What's the group name? And she said, well, it's not a group, it's just me and my friend, and we don't really have a plan yet. We've got some ideas. So I think David and I both panicked, but as a very capable, powerful woman and very intelligent college student, we knew that you would be okay, and we are really glad that you're back. Please, when we go back to the fellowship hall, take some time and look at Suzanne's pictures, because they're absolutely incredible. And some of you have the opportunity to take one home tonight. And so please help me to welcome Suzanne Everwood.
Okay, hi everyone. Well, first off, Mary makes the trip sound a lot more dramatic than it actually was. Just saying, we were safe, we made it across, and we're back, so thank God. So just letting you know, like Mary said, I'm a junior. Well, I just finished my junior year at Yale University, and I'm a senior now, so yay, but last year, so really scary. I don't really have much photography background, but one thing that has always stuck with me was my appreciation for the power of photographs and the power of photography and how just, and no words or even few words, we can convey complete ideas or thoughts to reach millions or even people all around. And one figure that stood with me throughout my entire early life was Steve McCarthy. And his photographs, one that I first saw, I'm sure all of you guys know, with the green-eyed girl on the cover of National Geographic. That one was one, when I saw it, I was just like, I was shocked, because I was thinking, how could one photograph of just one person somehow manage to speak volumes about what this person was experiencing or just what was going on in their life? So that was one thing that always has inspired me. And it was always because his works were always grounded in people, and the people were the central figures in these works of art. And he had such immense skill to capture the people's souls and experiences just with one click, and convey to us, the audience, what it was to be that person, and to be that person caught in these landscapes of war or destruction and poverty without us actually having to experience it on our own. And he didn't convey just this one scene, a moment in history, but rather conveyed an entire human condition. And this condition is one that we could all relate to. And this is something that has always inspired me and stayed with me, and I've been fortunate enough to have shaped such little experience that I've had. But traveling to Palestine, like Mary said, has always been a dream that I've had. And just like Sister Alfan mentioned before, it was one that I thought was very unattainable for about 18 years of my life. I was like, my parents watch Al Jazeera at home, and it's literally all just scenes of war and whatnot, and this is a dangerous place, and there's no way that I could go. And even on these news channels, the Palestinian discourse was always reduced to simply news bites, always followed by a warning and then a little prayer mumbled for all the lives that we lost. The Holy Land was always holy, and this was something that we all grew up with, but we also, along with, grew up that it was also a very dangerous place, a place that no one was even allowed to go. And in this narrative, we all, the collective diaspora, I guess, or the collective thought of everyone was focused on the landscape, on war and political parties and who had a right to this land versus that land. And the human voice in all of this was completely lost to the sounds of either bombs dropping or tanks rolling. And this form of injustice specifically is what motivated me to use my camera to maybe present a different perspective or even a different narrative. So to use my camera and photography to put a human face on issues that from afar can appear abstract or very ideological. And
Peter Tatchell is a British human rights activist. He concentrates protest against homophobia, apartheid, and the death penalty. He went to Russia during this year's World Cup to make a statement against the way gay Chechens and Russians are persecuted. It took considerable courage for him to do so. The Russian government is openly anti-gay. In 2007, Tatchell attended a gay pride parade in Moscow and was badly beaten by thugs. Here's what he said this week in Moscow. The first 5 seconds are a little hard to hear.
There can be no normal sporting relations with an abnormal regime like that of Vladimir Putin. President Putin sanctioned the 2013 law that has led to the persecution of LGBT Russians. He has failed to stop the violent anti-gay witch hunts in Chechnya. In August last year, the singer Seymour Hersh disappeared in Chechnya and has never been seen since. President Putin could find him and account for where Seymour Hersh is. I asked the president to act to find Seymour Hersh. I asked him to end the persecution of LGBT people, which is against the Russian Constitution, which guarantees equality and non-discrimination for all Russian people.
Sir, I ask you to stop your action because it's forbidden according to our law.
Okay.
Okay?
But under the Russian Constitution, it is permitted.
It's permitted, but our president decreed a law, 202. that during the World Cup it's forbidden to hold any action like you do right now. Any meetings,
even peaceful?
even peaceful.
One
yes.
person?
Or even one person. Yes.
But surely this law does not override the Russian Constitution. The Russian Constitution is supreme. It is the inviolable law
Yes.
of the land,
Yes.
which
It
says
is.
Article 31
Yes, it
says
is.
you can
Yes, it is,
protest.
but it's this law doesn't permit you,
Yeah,
yes, to show this action, and we ask you to stop.
yeah. But even President Putin doesn't have the right to override the Constitution.
I
am doing this action in solidarity with LGBT people in Russia and Chechnya. I want the Russian government
Sir,
to uphold
I
the Constitution.
am telling you recently
Yeah.
that you cannot continue your action. Right now,
Okay.
you're breaking Russian
Okay,
law.
okay.
So that's why you have to follow us. We will go to the police station.
He was detained by Russian police for several hours and then released with a court date. I'd like to point out that we at TSVN first heard about Peter Tatchell on an issue not at all connected with gay rights. Last year, he interrupted a speech by Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn. Tatchell and others were angered that Corbyn was refusing to call for any measures that would help Syrians. This photo is of a protest against an appearance by journalist Seymour Hersh in New York City. Yes, Hersh did wonderful work years ago about My Lai and Abu Ghraib, but in the last 5 years he's been writing trash about Syrians, doubting the chemical attacks with dubious arguments and relying almost exclusively on unnamed, behind-the-scenes sources. In 2013, after the terrible Ghouta murders, Hersh declared on Democracy Now! That Bashar Assad was the only game in town. Nicaragua is facing turmoil. The government of Daniel Ortega has killed over 100 protesters. I interviewed writer Dan La Botz about recent developments. Here's a portion of that interview.
Well, I would call it a popular rebellion. And I believe that the popular rebellion began because of a number of different sources. But the most important one was the changing in the retirement plan, where benefits were going to be cut and contributions raised, both on employers and on workers. And a group of elderly people who were recipients of such benefits went out to demonstrate. The police manhandled them, roughed them up. Students then came to join them. The student protests grew, and then the police fired on and killed students. And the killing of a number of students led to a massive sense of outrage within Nicaragua. And so I think that's the immediate cause of the popular rebellion.
When did all this happen?
This starts around April 18th, and has been going on now for the last month or more, and it's become it's a truly national rebellion. That is, the rebellion that began in Managua, the capital city, spread to many other Nicaraguan cities. The opposition to the government put up roadblocks throughout the country, 50 or more, that eventually paralyzed all traffic, even trapping hundreds of trucks in Nicaragua that were passing through Central America. And so it became truly national. Many cities and towns have barricades to stop the police. After this happened, the police, together with thugs of the ruling party, the Sandinista Party, the FSLN youth group, has for years had these thugs who go out and beat up opponents of the regime. So I think you should understand that This has been a very authoritarian government for a long time. It has been very conservative in its economic policies, very neoliberal, keeping down wages, stopping the growth of independent unions, doing things to attract foreign capital. So this is a government which has many problems from the point of view of the citizens.
Let's go back then, because you were going to do that before when I interrupted you. But you described the current unrest and violence, and then you wanted to go back and you know, for a lot of people, they remember Daniel Ortega, the leader of the revolution against the Somoza dictatorship, and then Reagan, and then it gets a little fuzzy, and you know, people haven't been paying attention to Nicaragua that much. So how did the revolution go wrong?
Well, you know, I'm one of those people. I went to Nicaragua in 1985 with my wife, my future wife, and a friend, and the three of us took medical equipment to a hospital in Esteli. We traveled throughout the country, welcomed into the huge trucks filled with soldiers going off to fight against the Contras. So I started out as a person who was supportive of the Nicaraguan people, supportive of the Nicaraguan revolution, and what went wrong was that first, the Contra War made it very, very difficult. That is, the U.S. government, Ronald Reagan, the State Department, the CIA, set up the Contras, a counter-revolutionary force, to fight the Sandinistas. And that made it extremely difficult for the Sandinista government to carry out its program of improving life for the people of Nicaragua. At the same time, they made mistakes that turned this into a civil war as well. That is, in their failure to give land to the peasants, in their awkward handling of relations to the indigenous people. They drove some people into the other camp.
To hear more of the interview, go to our website, thestruggle.org. Click on the black button that gets you to our YouTube channel. That's our program for today. See you next week at this time. I'm Stanley Heller for The Struggle.